This is On the Block with Nebraska Basketball Hall of Famer and 9-year NBA vet, Eric Strickland. Nebraska Football Hall of Famer, Jay Foreman. Middle school basketball coaching legend and Duke basketball shooting coach in his mind, Austin Orman. Coming at you live from the heart of Lincoln, America. On air and online at theticketfm.com. Sponsored by the Mercado by Certified Piedmontese. This is On the Block with Eric Strickland, Jay Foreman, and Austin Orman.
That is right. Welcome into On the Block, a different voice than probably what you're expecting to hear. Nick Sainert alongside Austin Orman, who will be joining me in just a few moments from Las Vegas, Nevada. The Royals game still going on, so that's why you're catching us here on the video stream, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Allo Channel 961, all places for you guys to get in touch with the show wherever you may be. Appreciate you guys tuning in. We got a lot of good things coming up on the docket, but without further ado, let's go ahead and bring in my friend out west, Austin Orman. Austin, welcome to your own show, my friend.
Nick, it's good to be here. Thank you for holding down the fort back home. I just want to lead off the show by saying this. For my first major sports bet, I found a Drew Waters hit for the cycle ticket. The odds were astronomical, and he did it.
No way.
Kidding. I'm kidding. I didn't do it. But
man,
if anyone has odds on a Drew Waters cycle, I don't even want to know how sick that person is or what that sports book is doing, who they think they're making money off of. But it would have been a great day to have the ticket.
Yeah, well, and it would have been a great day if you could have said, hey, well let's see how, will a cycle be registered in the first 2 weeks of the season. If you would have said yes, you probably would have gotten your odds at like plus, I don't know, 5,500 or something like that. Something astronomical like you kind of just mentioned. And the Cubs, Carson Kelly did it just 2 nights ago in a dominating 18-3 win. While we're on the Chicago Cubs, can we just give a moment about Kyle Tucker? And
the man is lava hot.
He is insanely successful right now. 4 straight games with a home run. And I would like to remind the folks that the Cubs have still yet to extend him. They barely got a deal done with him in the first place for his 1 year, $16 million conversation. But when you also, at the end of the day, it's incredible that they were able to, number one, trade for him. Number 2, to actually get a deal done. And number 3, now you just need to do the third part, and that's extend him. Because if you allow a guy like him to walk, the hotter he gets and the more successful of a season that he has, the harder it's going to be for a team like the Cubs or any mid-market team for that matter to be able to sign him.
Whoa. You cannot call the Cubs a mid-market team. Even if that's
any other mid-market team.
Well, even if that's how they operate, like a mid to small market team, the Cubs are a big money franchise that should not make the move to trade for a legitimate superstar like Kyle Tucker. He's not just a good player. He's not just an all-star. Kyle Tucker is a superstar in the game of baseball. If people don't know that yet, highly recommend they get on board. If you're a money franchise, a historic franchise like Chicago, and you make the move to trade for this guy, you extend him. That brings fans to the seats. In an NL Central, that's, getting maybe a little bit more stacked with star power than it's been the last couple of years. You look at Pittsburgh with Paul Skeens until they trade him away like they do all their starting pitchers. Maybe O'Neal Cruz is the one they keep. You look at Cincinnati with Ellie De La Cruz. You look at Milwaukee with Jackson Chourio in that organization, and I guess St. Louis also exists. You want to have that franchise star to hang your hat on, right? Sign him to an extension that works for him, that pays him what he's worth, but also one that, if the rest of the Cubs' young talent, like a Matt Shaw, for example, doesn't come along the way you think he will, then you know what? You still have some flexibility to move on. But it's a sign of good faith with other, free agents to come that, hey, we traded for this guy, not just as a rental. We're investing. We want you to be the face of our franchise. And it's good for fans as well. Clearly they're excited. So why not give them something to be excited about for years to come?
That's what I'm saying. The longer that this goes on without a conversation, or at least the attempt at extending him, the more pissed off you're going to get your own fans. That's just the end of the day. That's all it is. The Royals did a great job last year extending Bobby Witt, especially before the season that he had. You kind of got to take a leap of faith at times. You have to take a leap of faith and say, we're betting on, lack of a better word since you're in Vegas, we're betting on Kyle Tucker continuing this trajectory that we see him on and continuing to become successful in our organization. And the Cubs are always a tough one because there's a lot of factors that go into free agent decisions. You know this, where it's like, hey, well, how do I hit in the ballpark? How do normal hitters hit in the ballpark? Wrigley Field isn't necessarily a very hitter-friendly ballpark. We saw that come into Alex Bregman's decision when he was choosing between the Red Sox and the Cubs. We saw that into the conversation with Cody Bellinger when he was deciding between the Yankees and the Cubs. And obviously in those two other places, you have the short porch in right field at Yankee Stadium, but then you have the shorter but taller green monster in left field at Fenway. But ultimately, that does play a factor into it. And so the earlier that they can get this done, the better it usually is for fan bases, for the organizations, for just investment into the team as well for that upcoming season.
Oh, absolutely. And we're talking about an established guy who is very unlikely to just fall off a cliff, right? His game is going to age pretty well. You're not going to have to move him to DH, which, speaking of, your boy Seiya Suzuki just hit a 3-run tank, 105 off the bat. So good for the Cubs on that. But I'm also as intrigued, Nick, by the extensions we've seen handed out to some young players, right? Jackson Merrill signs a contract extension with the San Diego Padres, and Christian Campbell, he of 20 Major League Baseball plate appearances, gets a 6-year, $80 million contract extension from the Boston Red Sox. It'll take him through his age 32 season. You see these teams like San Diego and Boston being aggressive with their young talent. Yeah. Chicago has, every reason with a more established player to go out and give him maybe not a deal that resets the market, but certainly a market value deal, because they will make that back in an offseason.
Well, it's almost bizarre because, and I'm glad that you and I are having this conversation, even though we didn't plan for it. Shocker. But I'm glad that we're having this conversation because I looked at like Christian Campbell's deal and I look at other young prospects deals where, and I think this is really smart on the organizations for kind of taking a flyer on these guys with little Major League Baseball experience, because in the grand scheme, when you compare it to the market, they're not back-breaking contracts. They aren't. Like Christian Campbell's is not back-breaking by any means. It's great for him at his age, but I look at it the way that like the Padres handled Tatis, and they are still hurting from the deal. And now Tatis is back and he's off the suspension and he's off the injury and he's done really well. He's made some changes to his games. He's gotten a little bit quicker, so he's more of a threat on the base paths again. Like he's made some changes in his game, but at a much higher price to the San Diego Padres. Christian Campbell, we expect him to be pretty strong. We expect him to be an everyday second baseman or infielder, maybe even an outfielder at some point when he goes through his age 32 season, like you said. But even if it doesn't work out, teams have recovered from far worse contracts years and years before.
Boston is in such a fascinating position because this is a team that got a lot of grief, deservedly so, for their decision to trade Mookie Betts away. They didn't hardly get anything of value back for him, and they were pesky last year. They were fine, but they're really just waiting on this current crop of players. Christian Campbell's there. He's a stud. At least he's going to be if he's not now. But he might be the third best of this trio. I mean, Marcelo Meyer is one of the top prospects in baseball, and so is Roman Anthony in the outfield. Add that to a team that, was a fringy playoff contender up until late August last year. There's no salary cap in baseball. There's no reason you have to decide between these guys because they play different positions. If this was the NBA, you could be talking yourself into, okay, who's the James Harden of the group, right? Who's KD, who's Russ, who's James Harden that ends up getting traded away. That's not the case. Boston is in such an enviable position where they can get these deals done with their guys early, keep them around, and do it now when you can get, 6 for 80 or 6 for 90, whatever Campbell's was, is entirely affordable. That's like $14, $15, $16 million per year, which is nothing. That is absolutely nothing in a sport without a salary cap. So if you want to be a smart organization, you at least begin having these conversations, whether or not you actually get a deal done.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. And by the way, you guys can still chime in if you're tuning in on the Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Allo Channel 961 video streams. Feel free to still chime in. 402-464-5685 on our Sartor Heyman Jewelers text line. You can also call in on the Honda of Lincoln hotline as well, because we got plenty of stuff to get to. And let's transition away from Major League Baseball, because I think we could sit on that forever if we wanted to. Especially as somebody that just saw the Red Sox play, like with Jarren Duran and the whole Rafael Devers situation is just hilarious. And that's actually one that the Cubs, it's actually worked out better because they had the whole same situation with Seiya Suzuki out in right field, didn't want to be a DH, but as you just saw, he's playing a little bit of right field today, and he just hit a 3-run home run just a moment ago. Now, going to the college game, Nebraska baseball. And you and I love to dive deep into Husker baseball conversations time and time again. And we're going to do it again today as we kind of wind down this first segment, because yesterday Nebraska loses to Creighton. It's now their 12th loss to the Blue Jays in the last 14 attempts. And something's got to change. Something has to give, because, and maybe I want to talk about this with you specifically, because Austin, Creighton's in a really good spot as a program. Ed Service is going to be in his final year. He's going to be done after this year. We knew that was coming. They go out in last offseason and hire an SEC head coach in Scott Kingston, and they go and say, you're going to be the head coach in waiting. So we don't have to deal with this again next offseason. We don't have to make a last second, this is our cop-out plan hire, right? We're going to actually take our time. We're going to do this right. There's a head coach or a former SEC head coach from South Carolina that's available. Let's go get him, bring him in. He's not the manager, but he's just going to be kind of hanging out in the background. It's bizarre. But now that Creighton's actually having success, it sets them up really well for the future, and that kills me to say that.
It really does. And that's where you see these different approaches to hiring across sports. I do wonder if we see more and more of this sort of succession plan. I mean, the most important part of this is obviously selecting the right person for the job, right? I am very familiar with Duke basketball. They did the succession plan with Mike Krzyzewski, where they announced that he was going to retire after the 21-22 season. John Shire was head coach in waiting, and Coach K kind of stepped back on the recruiting trail. He let John Shire take the lead. And I think that's paid dividends for a first-time head coach in John Shire. Is that as important for a place like Creighton, a baseball program, if ever there was one, right? Not incredibly storied, but it's fine. It's solid. It's always a Big East contender. And you mentioned Kingston there, obviously an experienced head coach in his own right. You would think that that's a guy you could have these preliminary conversations with and just bring him in after next year. But I like the move to bring him in now because he's not overly familiar with Omaha, if I'm not mistaken, right? To learn the Creighton baseball culture, get to know the power players in the area. And it echoes back to, the Terry Pettit to John Cook turnover and transition for Nebraska volleyball in the early 2000s. So I, again, like you said, begrudgingly admit that I think it's probably a smart move by Creighton. Because it does set them up with a little bit more assurance of what the future holds. You get a guy with the ability to get his feet wet. Oh, and you can benefit from his SEC head coaching experience in the here and now, even while you wait for him to take over.
That's the thing. And I think I misspoke. I called him Scott Kingston. It's Mark Kingston. But either way, when you look at him, I mean, it allows for a smooth transition. Like he's not going to be coming in, and I don't know if necessarily coaches do this on the daily when they get a new job and ask about how things were run before, because I'm not sure they care. But when you're trying to retain your roster in today's current age of athletics, I'm sure there is a part of that of what did you like from the previous regime. When it's a situation like this where a coach isn't getting fired, he's retiring on his own thought. It is like, what did you like? What did you want to change? He can have those conversations throughout the next couple of months. There's no rush. It's a smooth transition. And not to mention, Creighton has a couple of really young, good pieces, and Nick Van Tyker's one of them. They're starting third baseman. Now, to switch sides of the dugouts, it's Nebraska. Nebraska's sitting here. They had all the chances in the world to build off of a great series win against number 5 Oregon State. And you're entering a week to where you're going to play 5 games in the span of 6 days from Tuesday to Sunday. And you're going to sit there and think, okay, we need our starting pitcher. We need some guys to step up again. The same thought process over and over that we have. It's you need some new suspects to step up, to eat some innings ahead of a very important week. And it couldn't have worked out better because you're coming in off of a series win. And then what happens? your starting pitcher, TJ Coates, can't make it out of the first inning. You got to go to your trusty Jalen Worthley, who continues to bail you out time and time again, and he gets you out of the first inning, but still with 3 runs on the board in favor of the Blue Jays. You start from behind the 8 ball. It's just the same thing over and over again, heading into a very important week for Nebraska.
To Nebraska's credit, it did punch back then, right? As soon as Creighton took the lead. I mean, it wasn't in the bottom of the first, but in the second inning, they tied it with 3. Creighton went back in front with 1 in the fourth. Nebraska got 1 back in the fifth. So on the one hand, you credit Nebraska for bouncing back. It's just that the Huskers couldn't throw that final punch to get back in the game after the 3 spot Creighton put on the board in the 9th. But Nick, I mean, it's a variety of factors that I think continue to lead to these slow starts for Husker baseball. Number one is the starting pitching, right? Still, I mean, it's been a trend for a handful of years now, really going back to that 21 team since then. Figuring out who's going to start in the midweek to help you bank these opportunities, even if these are bullpen or Johnny Holstaff types of days, you're looking for more than 2 outs from your starter. Right. Yeah. You're looking for 3 or 4 innings out of that first guy to take the ball. And then you can use some of those lesser known arms in the back to give them time to air it out and see what they got. But if you get 5, 6, 7 innings out of your midweek guy, you take that in a heartbeat. Nebraska hasn't found that consistently. And then it's a bunch of names at the back of the bullpen who gave up runs in that game against Creighton. I mean, Worthley gave up the 1 that was charged to him. Colin Novacek gave up 2. Price Bender got touched for 1. And then Luke Broderick, the guy, your closer, came in after Bender couldn't get the job done in the 9th and gave up those 2 runs as well. So as many dividends as the Rob Childress hire paid last year, Nebraska's still looking for his impact on this year's pitching staff. That's not something I would have expected. I don't think it's something you would have expected either. Certainly not.
I think when you look at Nebraska, my biggest thing is like, how does Nebraska take that next step? And it's been that conversation since I think 2021 is like, what does Nebraska need to do to take that next step from being a 3 seed in a regional or even a 2 seed in a regional to then doing what they talk about so often, and that's host a regional. And I continue to go back to 2 things. One is their approaches at the plate, which we can get to in just a moment. The second thing is, once again, the usual suspects are the only ones to step up. Time and time again, even in 2021, you're always going to have your core group of arms on the mound that you feel great about. You always will. And that's how you get to where Nebraska's at, to where a team that's made a regional 2 of the last 4 years, came all the way back and won the Big Ten tournament. But I think that's a great example because you say, okay, how did Nebraska come back and win the Big Ten tournament when they lost their first game of the tourney? It's because they had some strong outings from guys like Caleb Clark or Will Walsh. It's the guys that you're not always going to rely on game after game to eat up innings. Last night was a perfect opportunity for TJ Coates to go out there and say, look, I'm not one of the household names for Nebraska baseball right now. I'm not in the caliber of Jalen Worthley, but when my number's called, I'm going to be able to eat 4 innings because that's what my guys need ahead of a massive midweek or a massive 5-game stretch coming off of a really important series win. And it just wasn't able to be done. And it's not just TJ Coates. So I don't want to make it sound like I'm only talking about him, but it's Drew Christo as well. And it's just other guys on that roster that it's easy. The low-hanging fruit here, Austin, is, well, you got to give them some slack because they lost Mason McConaughey and Tucker Timmerman. Those two injuries do not change the way last night is played. That does not change the way that Nebraska's not even just midweek blunders. It's when you're not a Jalen Worthley, when you're not a Luke Broderick, when you weren't a Spencer Schwellenbach, doesn't change the other guys not being able to step up and just throw strikes. It's that simple little thing of throwing strikes, commanding the ball, making sure they're aggressive strikes, not just serving up meatballs. But whether it's the pitching or the lineup here, Nick, it just feels like Nebraska isn't consistently playing to a standard. If you look at some of the games that Nebraska has played the best, you think about their first win of the season over Vanderbilt. Was it perfect? No, it was 6-4, a win over Vandy down in the desert. Ty Horn wasn't elite, but he was good enough. He got the job done, and then other guys stepped up behind him. He put 6 runs on the board against an SEC school and one that's known for pitching.
nonetheless. So then you blow out San Diego State. Okay, they're fine. But then you go on the road and you only score one run on a Monday against Grand Canyon. Like the letdown from Vandy to Grand Canyon was quite something. Louisiana's fine, but you score 3 runs over the last 2 games. Nebraska actually plays decently well against LSU in the batter's box, but couldn't put it together on the mound. And then, of course, over the weekend, Huskers win their first series of the year. Yeah, you're down Mason McConaughey, but the fact that beating Oregon State was the first series win of the year for Nebraska is patently ridiculous. It's absurd with the schedule that Nebraska has had so far. And yes, having your ace helps. We know in baseball there are so many compounding effects when guys get moved up versus moved down in the rotation or in the lineup, absolutely. But this was supposed to be a team with a high floor, right? A team that would handle business, that would take care of the games it was supposed to. And we're still waiting for Nebraska to take that next step consistently against elite upper tier competition. But to go back to my original point, Nebraska has stepped up against the best teams on its schedule, put on a show against LSU. It beat Vandy. It took 2 out of 3 from Oregon State. The fact that Nebraska doesn't get up for these midweek games, Creighton must want it more. You know, it sounds reductionist to say that, but how else do you explain 12 out of 14? Is that on Will Bolt? Is it on the players? I don't care. It's on everyone. The fact that Nebraska hasn't had, the coaches find the right message to motivate the team in the midweek for a handful of years now, the fact that no player has taken it personally enough to go out there and say, no, enough of this, I'm claiming this job. Everyone's accountable for the way Nebraska struggles in the midweek, especially when it comes off a series against an Oregon State that showed Nebraska how it has to play baseball every night. It just hasn't matched that intensity the 27 times it's been out there. It's reached that level 4 or 5 times out of 27 games, and that's not enough.
Yeah, and I think that's really why it's very disappointing. Is it's not even like, sure, it's frustration, obvious, naturally, but I think it's just a lot of disappointment because of what you expected this year and what that expectation was. I mean, what if I told you that Nebraska, who was picked to be finished second in the Big Ten right now through a pretty good sample size, is 219th in the country in batting average as a team. 219th, second worst in the Big Ten Conference. The only team that's lower than them is the Washington Huskies, who was picked to finish last in the Big Ten Conference.
And who beat Nebraska in a series.
Yes.
At home.
Yes. And so, like, it piggybacks onto, it's not just the pitching, right? We can go on and on about the inability to throw strikes. And I've mentioned Jalen Worley's name so often here in this segment, but I think one thing that he does so well is he just is going to be competitive. And that's all you can ask. That's all you can ask from guys is just, hey, be competitive, throw a strike for us. And then you look at the offense, and there has not been, and I'm not clamoring for change. That has been a spot, though, where that hasn't changed coaching hands. And Will Bolt comes in, and the way that Will Bolt plays is supposed to be high contact, not necessarily long ball, and that's fine. But Nebraska then tries to be a long ball team. They can't, which then results in high strikeout numbers. It results in a lot of outs. It results in some really bad at-bats. And that's how you get here with playing, what was it, 27 games now? And you're 219th in the country in team batting average at 260. I think it's 269 as a team.
And that's obviously not going to cut it. And my biggest comment and critique on the offense is that there are 2 guys that have played every day. It's Dylan Carey and it's Caden Brumbaugh. And when you're not going well, you need to tinker. You need to try to find a lineup that works. And trust me, I understand that. I mean, Nebraska is more than halfway through its season right now. Yeah. And you have 2 guys sharpied in the lineup is all. I remember talking with Evan Blaine before the year, who we'll have again in about an hour on the show. I'm excited to hear that conversation between you two. And he said Nebraska felt pretty good about, 4 or 5 spots on the diamond, that it felt like you had returning guys that were going to play a big role that you could depend on, and they would make things easier for younger guys, for newcomers, or for guys in position battles. And that hasn't borne out at all, right? I mean, you think about the guys that Nebraska thought it was going to be able to depend on coming into the year. You think about a Cale Frost, right? Transferring up from the Summit League. He's got 5 DNPs so far, 22 games played, 19 starts. Josh Overbeek and Rhett Stokes have both played in 22 out of 27 games. Stokes has started 15. Overbeek started 17. Those are guys that we thought were going to be pretty much everyday starters for Nebraska. Gabe Swanson has played in 21 games with 17 starts. He's hitting a .182, only hit the ball over the wall twice. These were guys that weren't just supposed to be, in the lineup. These were supposed to be key, dependable guys, probably at the top of the order for Nebraska. And if they're not going, you got to try other options, because as long of a season as it is, it gets to be a short season pretty quickly. But when Nebraska tries to run out a lineup that succeeds in a weekend series, sometimes it runs it out there and the guys don't step up again in the midweek. Or on the flip side of that, they run out a whole new lineup that doesn't have the same mojo as the one that just came off maybe a good Saturday, Sunday, or a good full weekend, whatever it is. The tinkering has to happen, but I wonder if it gets taken a little bit too far as Nebraska searches for platoon advantages and whatnot, instead of just saying, hey, here are best players. Even if it's a rough week or two, these guys need at bats to get this sorted out. We just got to let it ride.
Well, and that was what was kind of bizarre about yesterday is for the first time in this season, on Friday going into Saturday's game, Nebraska had the same lineup, and I wish we could put this on blast even more than we already are. Nebraska had the same lineup for the first time in consecutive games this entire season going into Saturday's game. That was the first time. And I think there's this blend of finding at-bats, finding what works, finding some sort of recipe in the way you lay out your lineup and send guys to the plate to work. There's also something about giving it a run. And I feel like Nebraska has been so quick to tinker that it hasn't allowed guys to get into a rhythm. And something, I mean, the casualist baseball fan can sit here and say, well, you just got to be able to hit wherever you're at in the lineup. It's different, man. Pitchers will approach you differently if you're hitting 8th in the lineup compared to 2nd. They'll pitch you differently if you're hitting behind a guy that's a contact hitter or in front of a guy that hits bombs. Like it's just different. But when from spot number 1 to number 9 in the lineup is unable to do their job on any sort of consistent basis, it makes it, number one, really easy for some of the guys in the lineup, or excuse me, for the opponents to pitch you. And then on the other hand of it, it's just you don't know how long to let something work or how quick to change something.
And this is not this guy had a good game, so let's keep him in here. This guy had a bad game, let's keep him out there, out on the bench, right? Because we understand baseball has ups and downs. You can go 0 for 4 one night and 4 for 4 the next night. Either way, you end up at a 500 batting average across those two games. It's just about the consistency for the sake of the players, right? How many of those guys could honestly tell you they know what their role is and they know what to expect coming to the ballpark any given day of the week? I don't know what the conversations are like between Will Bolt, his staff, and these players. I mean, I tend to believe there's at least some level of communication going on, but this isn't the year or the role that Rhett Stokes imagined, that Josh Overbeek imagined, that the Gabe Swanson imagined. And if they're not performing, okay, get him out of the lineup. But this is something that you should have figured out who was hot in the first 15 games, who wasn't. I think about Gabe Swanson, was it last year, a couple of years ago? He really struggled early on. He was out of the lineup. Then he got his chance in a midweek game, got hot for a couple weeks, and then became the hero toward the end of the year. Right? Yeah. Nebraska didn't give its players the 2-3 week runway to try to get a sense of the rhythm or comfortability. Hey, here's our 1, 2, 3. Here's our 4, 5, 6. Here's our 7, 8, 9. Because you've played baseball, you know it. It's so different than basketball, and you never know when you're going to get a touch or a shot. Right? Football, you don't have control over a play. In baseball, knowing your role, knowing when you get your batting gloves on, knowing when you really start locking in on a pitcher, what you do in the on-deck circle, knowing what the guy in front of you likes to do, if he's aggressive or if he's patient, the guy behind you, where is he going to hit? All of those things go into that magical word you mentioned, approach, that changes so dramatically depending on where you are in the lineup. And then you have to worry about what the pitcher is going to do and attack you based on where you're at. This is not a lineup that feels comfortable with its surroundings in any way.
No, you're absolutely right. I believe we have a phone call before we get to break here. Caller, nope, we do not anymore. But let's go ahead and get to break. The Royals game just concluded, so we will be hopping over back onto the brick and mortar back in just a few minutes. We got some Husker basketball to talk about because we could dive into Husker baseball and continue talking about this for hours on end, especially with the current state of Nebraska basketball or baseball, excuse me. But on the good hand, for Husker baseball. They get another crack at it tonight. They'll be up at Tally Anderson Field against the Mavericks of Omaha later on this evening. I believe first pitch for that one is shortly after 6 p.m., if I'm not mistaken. But when we come back, we have Husker basketball to dive into. Nebraska versus Georgetown. Thankfully, Georgetown's not going to have the transfer that they just got committed. He will not be active tonight, so that's a good thing for Nebraska. We know Nebraska's current situation. We dive into it with Austin here on the block when we come back. Austin's live from Las Vegas. Nick Sainert with him back here in our 93.7 The Ticket studios. We'll step aside, come back in just a few moments on the block here, 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
Community means something different to everyone. But for me, it means cheering on those around you during the good times and helping them out during the tough times. I'm softball player Jordy Ball, and I've been blessed with the support of my friends, family, coaches, and community throughout my life. When looking for a bank to call home, it was easy to choose Midwest Bank. I never feel like just another customer, and they're proud to support their communities. They love what they do, and it shows. Your community, your bank, Midwest Bank.
Hey Nebraska! Register today for the 40th annual Cornhusker State Games, taking place July 11th through the 21st in Lincoln, Omaha, and other Nebraska communities. The Cornhusker State Games features 70 sports for athletes of all ages and abilities. Price increases are approaching, so register early and save. For details, go to cornhuskerstategames.com. Rehydrate, replenish, refuel with Gatorade, brought to you by Pepsi Cola of Lincoln, a proud partner of the Cornhusker State Games.
Spring sports are here and it's time to upgrade your equipment. But don't go rushing to your big box store. Play It Again Sports is your place to go for all spring sports equipment for baseball, softball, golf, and disc golf. Play It Again Sports has quality, slightly to gently used equipment, and 50% of their inventory is actually new equipment. And don't forget, buying from them is a great way to get new products with great discounts by also bringing in your used items for store credit or cash on the spot. Play It Again Sports at 48th and Vine.
Power combo BOGO? Huh?
Yes, if you purchase an air conditioner, you receive a furnace completely free. At John Henry's, our professionals want to ensure you are comfortable in your home all year long, no matter what Nebraska has to throw at us. Call today to schedule your free estimate and learn more about the free furnace waiting for you. Give John Henry's a call today.
435-5555. John Henry's Plumbing, Heating and Air.
And electrical.
Bagels and Joe is the perfect place for breakfast or lunch in April. Try their brand new cake batter cream cheese on any breakfast sandwich. And try the caramel latte, as 10% of proceeds from that drink will go to the Foundation for Lincoln Public Schools. 4 locations in Lincoln and 1 in Seward. Bagels and Joe.
Are you looking to get into the electrical construction industry or wanting a new scene? The electrical workers of Local Union 265 are now hiring licensed journeymen and apprentices and are offering great pay and benefits. Call Mike at 402-875-1034 to apply. Start your electrical career today.
Homeowners, is your yard in distress? Is your lawn being held hostage by stubborn and unruly weeds? Never fear, lawn lovers. Weedman is here. We'll rescue your lawn and restore its beautiful emerald green glory. The results of our expertly applied program are sure to impress the toughest of critics, your neighbors. Take that, Dale. Vanquish weeds and transform your lawn this year with Weedman Lawn Care. Get 50% off your first application. Go to weedman.com today. Terms and conditions apply. Go to weedman.com today.
It's officially one of the greatest weeks of the year on the sports calendar, Masters Week. Book your tee time today with friends, family, or coworkers at Double Eagle Golf inside the Kinetic Sports Complex on West O Street. Doors open at 10 a.m. from Thursday to Sunday, and they'll have food directly from Augusta National, like pimento cheese sandwiches.
School tells you all about the 4 seasons: spring, summer, and so on. And then there's a way we really tell what time of year it is. Sports seasons: football season, baseball season, or even off season. Well, what's the chocolate season? Well, it's now, of course. And now, and always. Whether you're looking for a caffeinated pick-me-up on the way to work, a little snack on the way home, or you need the perfect gift that's sure to be appreciated, it's time for the chocolate season, y'all. 40th and Old Cheney, or order ahead at thechocolateseason.com. See you there.
Your new Total Wine in Lincoln has the largest selection of wines, spirits, and beers, plus totally low prices and friendly service from our helpful guides. With over 8,000 wines, 4,500 spirits, and 2,500 beers, you're sure to find your favorites and something new. You can even order delivery, in-store, or curbside pickup. Find what you love what you find, only at Total Wine and More. Now open in Lincoln next to Gateway Mall.
Drink responsibly, B21.
I'm Chief Dave Engler. When a fire truck hits a pothole with 12 tons of fast-moving equipment and crew, it's a problem. On your ballot in April is a measure to continue Lincoln's quarter-cent sales tax for street improvements. A vote against eliminates the street funding. A vote for will not raise your taxes and keeps the funding in place. And better roads means faster response times. Learn more at LincolnOnTheMove.com.
We use our Lincoln streets every day, and so do first responders. But visitors and out-of-town commuters also do. A quarter-cent sales tax for streets passed by voters in 2019 makes those commuters pay about $6 million a year to improve streets. On your ballot in April is a measure to continue it. A vote against means no more funds from commuters. A vote for will not raise your taxes, and commuters still pay. Learn more at LincolnOnTheMove.com. Paid for by the City of Lincoln.
This is On the Block with Nebraska Basketball Hall of Famer and 9-year NBA vet, Eric Strickland. Nebraska Football Hall of Famer, Jay Foreman. Middle school basketball coaching legend and Duke basketball shooting coach in his mind, Austin Orman. Coming at you live from the heart of Lincoln, America. On air and online at theticketfm.com. Sponsored by the Mercado by Certified Piedmontese. This is On the Block with Eric Strickland, Jay Foreman, and Austin Orman.
Welcome back in. We are on the FM dial now here on the Block, 93.7 The Ticket, theticketfm.com. The voice you hear, Nick Sainert, hanging out back here at the studio while Austin Orman joins us via the video stream from Las Vegas, Nevada. Had a great conversation regarding Nebraska baseball, a little Major League Baseball thrown in there too in the first segment of the show. But now it's time we turn our attention to Husker hoops as Nebraska gets ready to play Georgetown later on tonight. 8:30 p.m. tip-off. Austin, welcome back in, my friend. I would say this, that these two teams on paper somewhat similar. One 18-14 on the year, the other one 18-15 on the campaign. But Nebraska continues to jump up, and I will say this from a sports betting standpoint. They opened as a 6-point favorite. This morning they were 7.5-point favorites, and now 9.5-point favorites against the Georgetown Hoyas, which I'll say it again, just feels so steep for what we know about this team.
I can't imagine that many people are betting on the college basketball crown. So if it is that much money was going on Nebraska and they want to put some back on Georgetown, yeah, I would be a little surprised because, let me note this again, betting on the college basketball crown is unregulated for a tournament in Las Vegas. It is still so funny to me that that's the case. I can't say I see Nebraska. I wouldn't put any money on Nebraska minus 9.5 in this one. I think there's some matchup issues that Georgetown can present for this Huskers team. But despite being in Vegas, Vegas always knows, right? I'm in the city, and I don't know what Vegas knows. I don't know what the Sharks are looking at with this one. Will I be surprised if Nebraska wins? Absolutely not. But I think both these teams have a bit of a penchant for playing close games, for coming right up to the precipice of victory. And for some reason,
your hotel, that's fine. I'll take things over.
It's all right.
Until you get back to the hotel
I hung
room.
up on him. It's
He's
fine.
back.
I don't need to talk to him. We're good.
He's back. No, I just think, like, when you look at Nebraska, you talked about the recipe for success, right? And we've talked about the personnel a lot, and Nebraska, I guess, just as generalized as I can make this question, how does Nebraska win?
Nebraska wins by stopping the two biggest threats for Georgetown. And I think on the drive, we mentioned some key players that are probably going to be involved in stopping Malik Mack, who's going to be the head of the snake, handling the ball a lot, and Micah Peavy, who's a very similar-ish player to Bryce Williams, at least in terms of the frame. But as always, it's a team effort, right? Because as much as stars have hurt Nebraska, when Nebraska can't contain those guys off the bounce, just as often as it's been the big names, it's been the names you don't know that will step up and hit a shot. It's going to be a team defense type of game. Georgetown can run. I think I would give them the athleticism advantage over Nebraska. So I think if Nebraska wants to be consistently successful, this is a game that they get back on defense. They don't give up many cheap transition buckets and let PV or Mac get confident in that way. And then everyone has to be on point, right? It's Sam Hoiberg fighting over screens, good recovery, good communication behind him. It's crisp trapping. It's being there, whether on the catch or after the first dribble. It's active hands. Nebraska forced a couple long skips against Arizona State that were on a line that led to open kickout threes. There were some in the second half when Nebraska made its comeback that were a little loopier and gave guys time to recover. And it's got to start from the jump, right? Nebraska can't ease into a game against a team that's of any competition level, let alone one similar to it, playing for just as much as they are. So I really think team defense is going to be the key. And then if Georgetown says, nope, stopping Bryce Williams is our focus, he's not going to get 30 against us, who is the player that's going to step up and have a big game for the Huskers on offense?
And that's where I kind of wanted to go. I'm glad you mentioned that, because when you do look at Nebraska, one guy that's been so consistent this year has been Bryce Williams for the most part. Take away the Iowa game to end the regular season, and that it reigns pretty true. But I think when you look at Nebraska, it's Juwan Gary has had an up and down year in terms of scoring the basketball. He's been present and he's done certain areas really well in different games, but it feels like just can't string a couple of games together in a row of doing multiple things consistently well. And that was a jumble of a sentence, so I apologize formally. However, like you look at then the guys that stepped up on Monday against Arizona State, and that was Sam Hoiberg and it was Cale Jacobson. And those are, I asked you that question yesterday of like, is that the type of player Nebraska's going to have to win with? And going into tonight's game, I think our answer away from a game day is like, yeah, you know what? I think there's a recipe for where Nebraska can kind of lean on those guys for some valuable minutes. A guy like Cale Jacobson coming off the bench and providing some valuable minutes if a guy gets into foul trouble. But now that we're here, like I sit here and I think, no, there's no way that Nebraska wins this game if Bryce is even held close to like 10 points tonight.
I tend to agree. I don't know who Georgetown will start on Juwan Gary, but Nebraska doesn't have a great record when Juwan goes for 20 or more points because he's not as consistent offensively as Bryce is. It definitely takes more work for Juwan to get his shots up than it does for Bryce Williams. I still think that this setting is pretty perfect for Connor Essegian. This is the right type of opponent, right type of setting that he's probably the guy I would look to for a big game after that. We also have talked about Georgetown's not a huge team. Maybe this is a game that the Andrew Morgan has the rust fully shaken off and he goes for 15 and 7 or whatever it is tonight. Just like I just got done saying, right? Sometimes it's the stars, sometimes it's the role guys. It was both for Nebraska in the win over Arizona State to lead off the college basketball crown. We know Bryce Williams was good. Juwan Gary's stat line looks fine, even if you didn't. At least I didn't really notice his impact for stretches of the game. But it was the role guys. Sam Hoiberg hitting that 3 to push it to 10. That was all but the dagger in the game. Cale Jacobson, I mean, if he gives you the 2 points, the 5 assists, and a handful of rebounds as well, why not just insert Cale Jacobson into the Raleigh Wooster role? That's really what he did for Nebraska, but with 2 working feet instead of just one that Raleigh's operating with right now. So there's probably going to be a moment where Georgetown, when they make their run, it's going to be because they've got the clamps on Bryce Williams. This is a huge moment for Fred Hoiberg, Nick, after his first postseason win at Nebraska, to prove his fans right and show just how good of a coach he is with a one-day prep, right? This is a tournament-style setting where you have 1 day off in between. No, it's not the NCAA tournament, but it's the same setup. You play one day off to get ready for your opponent, play the next day. Do you have a lot of time to put in all sorts of fun wrinkles because you know this team like the back of your hand? No, but they don't know you either. So can you pick up on 1 or 2 key tendencies that you can exploit? Can you hammer those for long enough to find a way to come out with a win?
I think we got a phone call. Okay, we keep getting hung up on. That's unfortunate. There's nobody back there to answer we're Austin's in Vegas. We don't got anybody back there.
Sorry, people.
If you call in, stay on the line when we put you through. Anyway, what I was gonna say, I mean, that's another piece of it is the coaching battle, right? You have Ed Cooley on one side and you have Fred Hoiberg on the other side. This is a fascinating tournament, and this is a narrative and an angle that doesn't matter really, but it's a fascinating tournament in terms of the coaches that are here. You have Fred Hoiberg, who has had success at Iowa State, a former NBA head coach. You have Ed Cooley on the other side, who had a dramatic leave from Providence to go to Georgetown. On the other side of the bracket, I guess you could throw in Bobby Hurley into that conversation as well. Then on the other side of the bracket, you have Eric Musselman, who has coached in NCAA tournaments at his previous stop in Arkansas, took off his shirt, swung it across the scores table. I mean, on the NCAA tournament stage, it is bizarre. This tournament has been kind of everything we wanted it to be. It's being viewed as a serious thing, which I think is important, but it's also going, you know what? Look, you're playing basketball on April 2nd in a tournament that doesn't mean anything in terms of NCAA championship status. You're playing for NIL money. And as unhinged as college athletics is, this tournament is just as unhinged, it feels like, at times too.
We needed a tournament just like this, right, to fully complete the college basketball vibe. It's where we're at. It's where we are. A lot of respect for Ed Cooley, the coach. Certainly more respect for him than Providence fans have right now. It's a couple wild kind of stats. I looked this up when Nebraska played UCLA, and I don't have the numbers in front of me. But outside of Kansas and maybe Michigan State, depending on how you consider them, or Indiana, Nebraska just doesn't play the Blue Bloods in college athletics, right? I put Georgetown more in that Indiana, Syracuse tier of college basketball history and tradition. But this is, number one, Nebraska's first matchup against Georgetown all time. Makes sense they wouldn't have a random non-conference game, but they never cross paths at a tournament or classic or shootout or whatever. So that's interesting. And it's the first game Nebraska men's basketball is going to play in the month of April. That's kind of bizarre. 127 years of basketball history, and it took the most unhinged college basketball tournament the half-baked Fox executives could think up to get Nebraska playing April basketball. But hey, you don't turn it down.
You don't. And to go back to the whole betting unregulated piece of it, what's even better is that Fox and the Crown sent out betting odds that are sponsored by DraftKings to say, hey, these are the favorites to win the tournament, to win the crown. It's unregulated once again. It's just they just need to go into the bit and be like, look, we're unregulated, but here we are. We agreed to money through DraftKings. They're helping us fund this NIL purse that we're giving out. We're just going to keep on posting these things. It's unregulated. It's unhinged, but we are fully absorbing it. All right, Austin, let's wrap up the show after this. We'll continue talking Husker basketball, but we're up against the clock, and we'll get you ready for Old School with Jay Foreman joining me in studio. Austin will join us until 4:30, but we got plenty more to talk about when it comes to Husker hoops. Don't go anywhere. It's On the Block, brought to you by our friends at the Mercado. We'll step aside, come right back here on 93.7 The Ticket.
Follow Austin Strick and On the Block on Twitter at Austin Orman, eStrick20, and On the Block 93.7. More of On the Block coming up.
The electrical workers of Local Union 265 are now hiring licensed journeyman electricians from $32.50 to $42.50 per hour with paid benefits. And if you're looking for a new career, they're hiring apprentices at $19.50 per hour with paid benefits. Call the office at 402-423-4497 to apply. Start your electrical career today.
Start your Sundays off right with Jeff and Nicole Essink on Fitness Fanatics. Jeff and Nicole discuss health and wellness, how to achieve fitness goals, and more through the life of gym owners and gym goers. It's Fitness Fanatics from 9 to 11 a.m. on Sundays on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
Water heater gone? Call Bryant. The price you're quoted is the price you'll pay. And in most cases, same-day replacement. Bryant Air Conditioning, Heating, Electrical, and Plumbing. 467-1111.
What's going on, fans? This is Lexi Rodriguez, four-time All-American at Nebraska and now proud member of Omaha's newest professional team, Love Omaha Volleyball. League One Volleyball is bringing the heat this year. Don't miss your chance to see Olympians, national players, and national champions right here in Omaha from now through April. We can't wait to see you cheering us on in the stands. Visit lovboma.com to buy single match tickets to see me and Love Omaha Volleyball in action action this season. Go Big Green!
This is Monster Jam. Big air, backflips, and all-out racing. Monster Jam, as big as it gets. The fun begins at the pit party, where you can meet the drivers, get autographs, take pictures, and see the trucks up close. Get your pit party pass at monsterjam.com today. Must have valid event ticket to enter pit party. Restrictions may apply. Rules and activities are subject to change. Visit website for event details. Coming to Pinnacle Bank Arena April 18th through 19th.
Hey, what are you talking about over there?
Huh?
I said, what are you talking about?
You know, Bill, I think it's time for both of us to get our hearing checked. We should head over to Christensen Hearing Analytics.
Oh, yeah, I've heard about them. They offer a free hearing consultation and screening, affordable hearing aid prices, and a knowledgeable staff with over 30 years of experience.
Visit Christensen Hearing Analytics today in Williamsburg Village or give them a call at 402-489-3450. Christensen Hearing Analytics. A better life starts with better hearing.
This is Monster Jam. Witness big air, two-wheel skills, backflips, and all-out racing. It's the only place to see the world's best drivers tear up the dirt in your favorite Monster Jam trucks, like Gravedigger, El Toro Loco, Megalodon, and more. It's big-time fun for the whole family. Monster Jam, as big as it gets. Coming to Pinnacle Bank Arena April 18th through the 19th. Brought to you by BKT Tires. Tickets on sale now at monsterjam.com.
Outside is where winter adventure unfolds. On frozen lakes, icy landscapes, and snow-covered slopes. Feeling the cold air rush by as you race downhill. The freedom of gliding with ease and the warmth of being together. From epic sled rides to the fun of ice fishing, it's all right here beneath Nebraska skies. Start your winter adventure at yournebraskaparks.com. Sponsored by Nebraska Game and Parks, aired with the Nebraska Broadcasters Associations and this station.
93.7 The Ticket, Fox, KFXL weather. Sponsored by John Henry's Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning.
Any showers and thunderstorms will be wrapping up here today. Then we'll see decreasing cloud cover. It's going to be a breezy Wednesday, gusts up around 30 to 35 miles an hour. High temperature right around 61 degrees. Tonight, mostly clear all the way down to 34 for a low. We'll see plenty of sunshine tomorrow, the high temperature near 60, and then cooler and rainy as we head into the weekend. I'm meteorologist Aaron Doudna for 93.7 The Ticket and ticketfm.com.
Your new Total Wine in Lincoln has the largest selection of wines, spirits, and beers, plus totally low prices and friendly service from our helpful guides. With over 8,000 wines, 4,500 spirits, and 2,500 beers, you're sure to find your favorites and something new. You can even order delivery, in-store, or curbside pickup. Find what you love what you find, only at Total Wine & More. Now open in Lincoln next to Gateway Mall.
Drink responsibly, B21.
Rosie Sports Bar and Grill, open for lunch and dinner at 1501 Center Park Road.
Now back to On the Block with Eric Strickland, Jay Foreman, and Austin Orman.
All right, what's up? We're back here on the block. Nick Stannard, Austin Orman, Jay Foreman will join us momentarily for Old School starting at 4 p.m. Austin, we needed to mention this just in the college basketball landscape of news. Chris Beard is officially staying at Ole Miss. He had engaged in discussions with Texas A&M and obviously Trev Alberts regarding the Texas A&M head coaching job. Masterfully played probably by Chris Beard, though, because he'd engaged in serious conversations. He told Ole Miss about them, and now he's set to receive a raise, more money for resources, and more money for NIL. And his job at Ole Miss becomes probably a little bit easier with a little more cushion because that now there's something substantial that he was being courted by another SEC school.
To be completely fair, this is what Chris Beard did to Texas Tech back in the day before he jumped ship to Texas. So until it is official and he signed that deal, anything is on the table. I will say him taking the A&M job, is a better job? Is it a worse job than Ole Miss? It's comparable, right? Neither one is necessarily a basketball school, but I can't think of any person, any player, any coach who has been at Texas Tech, Texas, and Texas A&M. Man. Imagine the way that all of those fan bases have felt about that man and the way they would feel about him in his new role. That would be just an insane sort of legacy tour to have because, I mean, Chris Beard came from Stephen F. Austin. as
that's
well.
right.
No, that was Brad Underwood. He was at Little Rock. Sorry, it's Chris Beard at Little Rock at Arkansas.
Which is so weird.
It's still weird. He was the head coach of that Little Rock team that beat Purdue in the tournament. So yeah, I mean, good on Chris Beard, good on his agent for negotiating that. I think it would have been probably the best hire A&M could have plausibly made.
100%.
But that just makes me wonder, Nick, why, if you're Villanova or Maryland and Chris Beard might be available, don't you just try to go get him instead? I'm not saying Kevin Willard is a bad coach. He's fine. But if he's the best Villanova can do, I really have to change my opinion to that university.
So then, okay, before we get out of here for the start of the next hour, where do we think Texas A&M goes?
Michael Early isn't exactly killing it in baseball, so maybe they have him try basketball and see if that goes any better. No, I really don't know, and that's why the Trev Alberts portion of this search is the most fascinating angle here from the Nebraska standpoint. I would wager that Nebraska fans don't have to be concerned about their head coach being poached. Trev Alberts is more than a football guy, but that's certainly his specialty when you look at him as an athletic director. What he does will be fascinating, and how the fan base views it and how it views the basketball program will also be interesting, because Buzz Williams raised the floor tremendously. They got talent in there. They're one of the preseason picks to win the SEC. They're a good team. They're a good, solid program, plenty of access to talent and resources. So Trev Alberts can't just punt this hire and go get whoever. He's got to go get a dude to compete in the SEC, because A&M's good right now.
That's the conversation I was having with somebody yesterday. It was you can't take a flyer. You can't take just a flyer on a guy or an up-and-comer. Like, he has to be somebody that's done it consistently at the mid-major level, or done it in a smaller sample size at the Power 4, Power 5, Power 6 level, whatever you want to call it.
This is where it's maybe a little bit of unfortunate timing for Trev Alberts, because I really think Will Wade would have fit A&M really well.
Yeah.
But I don't think Will Wade and Trev Alberts would have gotten along. So.
No, but can you imagine with that NIL investment with Will Wade? Like, I think Will Wade is going to kill it at NC State. I think there were very few Power 5 jobs where Will Wade wouldn't have been successful, in my opinion, just because of his ability to recruit. And now that it's basically what he was doing at LSU is now legal. Once revenue sharing begins, it's going to be easy for him. But Will Wade fits really well in the ACC, because you don't have to be great to contend in the ACC. Obviously, it's top heavy with a team like Duke and most of the time like a team like North Carolina. But ultimately, I think Will Wade at NC State's fascinating. We'll dive into it a little bit more. Let's round out hour number 3, our first hour of the show in the 3 o'clock hour. Let's turn to the 4 o'clock hour. Jay Foreman's in the building. He will join us as we continue talking a little Husker basketball, just with a different angle. We're going to talk personnel, because when you look at Nebraska basketball, there are portal targets out there, and they're recruiting while they're trying to accomplish this Crown Tournament victory. There's a lot of things going on. Fred Hoiberg, his staff, Peyton Borders. I was texting back and forth with Coach Peyton Borders just a little bit ago, talking about how do they blend this whole recruiting while trying to work and hire another assistant coach. So much going on. We'll dive into all that with Jay Foreman, Austin Norman, Nick Sainert. We'll be back to start the 4 o'clock hour here on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
Follow Austin Strick and On the Block on Twitter at Austin Orman, eStrick20, and On the Block 93.7. More of On the Block coming up.
It's the two-fingered wave on a gravel road. It's letting the kids take Dad's truck to prom. It's Friday nights under the lights of a hometown football field. Eustace Body Shop knows small towns. It's where our values are rooted. We treat our people right, and in turn, they treat you, our customer, right. And we give back to our communities. Not much more small town than that. Eustace Body Shop, small town service, big city technology.
The most recommended Eustace Body Shop. That's who we are.
Garage doors can break down or quit working at the worst times. At Doors Plus, they understand that a broken garage door sometimes means repair and not replace. Sometimes, all you need to make your door like new again is a few bolts, a realignment, or even a new balance. Trust the pros at Doors Plus to handle your garage door repair the right way, so you can get on with your busy schedule. Visit them online at DoorsPlusLLC.com or give them a call today at 402-590-5800. Doors Plus, garage doors and more.
Spring is the time of new beginnings and trying new things. If you haven't tried Führer's cheese spread yet, the time is now. For parties for St. Patrick's Day and Easter or celebrating the NCAA tournament with friends, there's no better dip to bring everyone together and celebrate something from Nebraska. Get to your local grocery store today and load up on Führer's cheese spread. No event or party is complete without it on your table.
93.7 The Ticket, Fox, KFXL weather. Brought to you by Bryant Air Conditioning, Heating, Electrical, and Plumbing.
Any showers and thunderstorms will be wrapping up here today. Then we'll see decreasing cloud cover. It's going to be a breezy Wednesday, gusts up around 30 to 35 miles an hour. High temperature right around 61 degrees. Tonight, mostly clear all the way down to 34 for a low. We'll see plenty of sunshine tomorrow with a high temperature near 60 and then cooler and rainy as we head to the weekend. I'm meteorologist Aaron Doudna for 93.7 The Ticket and TicketFM.com.
Spring is here. It's time to get back outside and into proper shoes this year. Brown's Shoe Fit is the place to buy this spring with their sale on athletic shoes. Get $15 off any regular priced athletic shoes with respected brands like Hoka, Brooks, New Balance, and On Running. And don't forget, Brown's carries a large arrangement of sizes and widths to fit your feet properly. Start your spring off right at Brown's Shoe Fit, just south of 66th and Q in Lincoln. Start your Sundays off right with Jeff and Nicole Essink on Fitness Fanatics. Jeff and Nicole discuss health and wellness, how to achieve fitness goals, and more through the life of gym owners and gym goers. It's Fitness Fanatics from 9 to 11 a.m. on Sundays on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
Water heater gone? Call Bryant. The price you're quoted is the price you'll pay. And in most cases, same-day replacement. Bryant Air Conditioning, Heating, Electrical, and Plumbing. 467-1111.
Hey, what are you talking about over there?
Huh?
I said, what are you talking about?
You know, Bill, I think it's time for both of us to get our hearing checked. We should head over to Christensen Hearing Analytics.
Oh, yeah, I've heard about them. They offer a free hearing consultation and screening, affordable hearing aid prices, and a knowledgeable staff with over 30 years of experience.
Visit Christensen Hearing Analytics today in Williamsburg Village or give them a call at 402-489-3450. Christensen Hearing Analytics. A better life starts with better hearing.
Wall to Wall Wine and Spirits is your place in North Lincoln to go for all your needs in wine, spirits, and beer. They also have a large variety of cigars in their walk-in humidor, and they have a top-notch walk-in, temperature-controlled high-end wine room. Plus, you can enjoy free samples from their tasting bar. There's only one place to go for all your needs for spirits and cigars. That's Wall to Wall Wine and Spirits on North 27th Street in Lincoln.
There's nothing quite like the Mercado by Certified Piedmontese beef. The Mercado offers unique ingredients you can't find anywhere else, open every day from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. The full-service butcher shop and retail store is wonderful for meat lovers with their exclusive Certified Piedmontese beef and assorted sausages, plus other quality meats, including pork, chicken, and a wide range of the freshest seafood. Plus, every Friday from 11 to 2, the Mercado serves up the best lunch in town on their Friday Feast menu. Stop in at the Mercado today at 84th and Havelock or visit their website at cpmercado.com to see current deals.
This is On the Block with Nebraska Basketball Hall of Famer and 9-year NBA vet, Eric Strickland. Nebraska Football Hall of Famer, Jay Foreman. Middle school basketball coaching legend and Duke basketball shooting coach in his mind, Austin Orman. Coming at you live from the heart of Lincoln, America. On air and online at theticketfm.com. Sponsored by the Mercado by Certified Piedmontese. This is On the Block with Eric Strickland, Jay Foreman, and Austin Orman.
Welcome back in. It's the 4 o'clock hour, 93.7 The Ticket, theticketfm.com. Nick Sainert, Austin Orman in Las Vegas. Joining me to the left here in the studio, it's Jay Foreman. Jay, happy Wednesday. Isn't this great that we get to do a show hanging out?
Yeah, man. I like it. Just made my day.
I can tell by your enthusiasm coming into the station today.
Well, what would you like my tone to be?
A little more chipper.
Oh, Nick, this is great, man. It's great to see you. How you doing, my guy?
See, that makes me feel better.
Was that so hard, Jay? Was that so hard?
It wasn't. It wasn't, Austin.
Hell no. Austin coming in here? I thought he was gone.
You wish.
Oh, hell no. This is like the double trouble here. All we need is your boy. Hey, all we need is your boy, Kaiser Soze. That's who you know who I'm talking about. My man's a legend. If you listen out there, JB, You my homie, man. You know what I'm saying? He like Kaiser Soze. You ever seen that?
No.
You never seen that movie with Kaiser Soze?
No.
You dropping hints and just by the time they figured out who it was, he was gone. Right off of X.
Anyway,
by the time he get done with it, it's gonna be called Z.
Okay, we got plenty of stuff to get to that is actually serious here.
It was serious.
I'm sure it was. I'm sure it was.
Zoinks.
But anyway, 402-464-5685, the Honda of Lincoln hotline, the Starter Heyman text line, open and available for you guys. We'll be joined by Evan Bland of the Omaha World Herald at 4:30. That's when Austin will cut out. So we only got one segment left of Austin. Yeah, I'm sure. And so we'll only have one segment left with Austin. So we'll dive into Husker hoops here in just a second. But then we got a full show ahead up until 6 p.m. before ticket weeknights take over. All right. So we were talking Husker hoops, and we wanted to go in the direction of transfer portal targets because there's a lot of conversations about what Nebraska needs going forward, guys. And Jay, we'll start with you, my friend. Is like you look at what could potentially be fillers for Nebraska going forward. They're losing a lot, man.
Yeah, you hate to say, okay, this is what they need, and they tip off in 4 hours.
Yeah, right. Like we hate having this conversation, but
you got
it's active.
You almost have to have start. Welcome. I like Fred, but you know what, Fred? This is and this is not the toot my own horn. This is what club basketball coaches have to deal with when you get about the middle of your season, because kids get in the transfer portal and get in their feelings. But I think what they need to do, obviously, Rink's coming back, so that's a huge get, right? And then you got to assume Connor Season is getting back, and
yeah, he just announced yesterday that he was for sure.
Yeah,
so we're good there.
Yeah, it was good after that.
Yeah, right.
You kind of got a couple pieces there, so what you can't do, and this is whether it's football or not, you can't say, okay, I need to go get the exact Bryce, or another Juwan Gary. So what you need is you just need, okay, I need this type of player here. I think they need probably a guy that can kind of create his own shot, late in the shot clock, right? Because that's what you're going to get a lot of times in Big Ten Conference. You probably like to see somebody along with Rink be on the boards, and then obviously you need some more. You need shooters. You need some. You always need shooters. I'd like to see another shooter. A guard that I don't think they're, I like true point guards, so I like Sam, but also I like the combination guards. And it also depends on, who else is part of this portal class is a redefined role or a more clear role for Burke.
Yeah.
So I know it's easy to, when you go through the assumptions and worry about what NIL is getting. And then, obviously you come in with a lot of fanfare. It's like, okay, you're the reason why you're not winning.
Yeah.
He's not the reason why you're not winning. What you have to do is really, I will say this, is the best conversation or the hardest the best conversation or conversations Fred has had with a player about improving are two guys. With Casey from year 1 to year 2, and then obviously year 3, adding to your game, being better off the ball. Don't be a better steady defender instead of kind of being a guy that you can kind of look like you're playing defense, but you're leaving a lot of holes in your defense. So that's the same conversation you have with Burke. Then you will get another version of Burke, a better version.
Let me jump in here off that, because I think we've seen a pretty consistent track record of guys get better in year 2 under Fred Hoiberg once they transfer in, right? You think about Casey, like you just mentioned there, Jay. I would throw Derek Walker firmly into the mix in that conversation. He got eligible at Christmas. He was fine, but just kind of a guy. And then he became the guy for that team. Guys that sit a year under Fred Hoiberg and learn typically do pretty well, which is where I think the Bearcade-Boyukton experiment is interesting, because I think if Nebraska had Rink Mast available, that would have been good for Bearcade to be the backup to Rink, where they could use him and point to Rink as the model for Bearcade to follow. But instead, he just has to listen, but he's trying to figure it out on his own. This is where Bryce Williams, I think, needs to be commended for coming in from the jump and being good in year 1 in his role. It probably got a little better, certainly higher usage in year 2. But yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head there, and that's where I think Bearcade's development might be the biggest X factor for Nebraska this offseason. Essegian's development is probably a secondary one as well, because you have to add to the roster in the portal, but you haven't had anyone enter the portal yet, which I think is good. I think it's what Fred Hoiberg wants, as long as those guys come back either a better version of themselves, the player they currently are, or with an added skill that adds value to the team and what they can do on the court next season.
Which, out of those pieces that are returning, right? Whether it's Berke, whether it's Nick Janowski, Braden Frager, or whoever it is, out of all the pieces that are returning, Sam Hoiberg, who's the most valuable?
Jay, do you have a thought?
Most valuable? I think it's going to be Rink is going to be the most valuable.
Oh, okay. Rink's obviously most. Okay, after Rink, I would, because I'm thinking from the guard position in terms of the ability to shoot the ball.
It's going to be Janikowski.
I think I would say something. I think Nick Janowski is going to be legit.
I would say he's the most. I wouldn't say most pivotal.
Yeah.
I think he's the most pivotal because he gives you a 3-level score, legit shooting, and it eases all the pressure on Frager to really, really jump in and add in his game to a Big Ten game. I think once you can shoot and you can get downhill, you can kind of plug and play. And that's more what they've seen that was successful.
Yeah.
Janowski is so intriguing because he spent a lot of this season running the point. And I can understand wanting the ball in the hands of a guy that you think can handle it. But I do think that maybe, Fred Hoiberg is overstepping a little bit in making Bryce Williams handle it so much, right?
Yes.
They're trying to make point guards instead of recruit point guards, right? You want the ball in Janowski's hands and Williams' hands at the end of the shot clock, not at the beginning of the shot clock, right? And Nebraska hasn't had a guy like Nick Janowski. I'm not saying in terms of his skill set, but in terms of a high school guard that they were able to redshirt, that made the most of that redshirt year and then came out and looked like they were ready for the moment. If Nick Janowski struggles, he's averaging 8 points through November and December, that's not going to be time to freak out. But this is where I'll go back to Jay's expectations and standards. If Nick Janowski is a point guard, he's going to be asked to spot up, hit threes, handle the ball, initiate the offense a little bit. That's completely different than Nebraska going out and getting a point guard, allowing Janowski to hunt shots and really be that off-the-ball floor spacing weapon. So how Nebraska chooses to use Nick Janowski throughout the year next year obviously matters for next year's teams, but also Nebraska needs a win in high school recruiting. They need a guy to point to say, this is what we can do for you. Trust us. Trust our process. We know what you're good at. We will put you in positions to succeed. Maybe they know Nick Janowski is a point guard at heart, and they amplified that more so than maybe he was in high school. If they're right about it, great. But if Nick Janowski comes out and he's looking like he's adjusting and acclimating to the college game, I wouldn't be shocked if some of it's because they're asking him to play, one of the two most cerebral positions on the floor, and that's point guard as a young guy. Not saying he's not ready for it, but why not simplify it for him, let him do what he does best, and then grow into anything else down the line?
I think like point guard, I think it's one of those things that, they try to equate the quarterback. But I also think that you don't know. I think point guards it used to be point guards and quarterbacks are born and leaders are born. I think you can morph into one. And so Janikowski has been running the point. It's either doing two things. One, they see him fit there, but then two, they're helping him be a better scorer by him doing something else in practice.
For sure.
Because it allow you to play more free once you go back to your original position. But then also I think you can get to college and do about face. I mean, I'm not, I don't like talking about myself that much, but if you would ask
me. Why you do it every show then?
I do not.
Dang. I stayed quiet through that, Jay.
You've been on the text message. I know you guys been doing it together.
Austin, this is your turn. It's your turn.
I come down here, on a volunteer basis, and I get hijacked.
Volunteer.
You know what? I'm gonna unvolunteer my time, man.
You're gonna volunteer your time.
Yeah. Okay. Right, I'll finish. But you would, if in high school, if you would have said to me, "You're going to be a middle linebacker," I'd be like, "No way." Mm-hmm. So I think it could be a thing. But I think really the big part, it would Austin's talk about this high school. For local recruits or just, I guess, it's not a 500-mile radius. It's essentially anybody in the portal. So it's, in the whole wide world, because we can recruit somebody from somewhere else. Is that, I think the Braden Frager factor. Because you got to think Janikowski's probably more ready.
Yeah.
Right. He's just coming out of high school, right?
Yeah.
Braden Frager, if he's gotten better and developed redshirting, he's almost like two recruits because you get what you think you had like initially, and then if you gotten better, he can plug in some holes of guys that are just left. So he could be obviously not Juwan Gary, apples to apples, but he could be that guy that to be the junkyard dog and play with effort like Juwan did in the first year. That's all just effort, right? And then timely threes and
I was gonna say, I think a lot of Juwan's even today is a lot of just effort, like being there. He's not a high percentage shooter by any means, and so I think he's more of a physical presence at that position,
right?
In my opinion, exactly, right.
And then embracing it, and then as you get better, you just add to it. So I think I think they have some more pieces on there, and then the guys that are supposed to be good, they got to step up. And so, I think if you have a player that's going to get better in year 1, year 2, you talked about Derek Walker. I talked about Casey. It's the little things, learning his system a little bit better, and then be, a little bit better in the really studying the game and studying your opponent. That's what took Casey to a whole nother level. If you thought that Casey only got better just because he hit the dramatic threes that was end up being on, in the Big Ten, when he hit those threes and he had the two super fans getting excited, then you didn't really watch the game. He got better off the ball. That means he was able to create opportunities for himself, but then also got better as a passer off of the secondary cuts. And the offense seemed to never sputter like we've seen before, where it was supposed to be dribble drive, but it was isolation. All right, I'm done dribbling. Here you go, Nick. Shoot the last 3 seconds in the shot clock. So I think that they get guys that fit in that. But then also I think the one thing they have to do is find a player that's willing to be able to create. And create doesn't mean create for yourself in the last 8 to 10 seconds in the shot clock. Yeah. You need that player. That's the X factor. Because Fred can get guys to go do his, do the thing, because those are, I wouldn't say easy to recruit, but you can kind of develop to that because he runs really good actionable sets, and as long as you learn it, you can read it. You got to find somebody that can create, and create isn't just for yourself.
It created an advantage, right? That's what Nebraska was missing a lot of times this year, is they would go hunt their own shots, but they didn't necessarily have a guy that set others up consistently. They were very dependent on the scheme to do that, and based on the roster fit, it didn't always work out, which is where I kind of want to jump back to what Jay was saying about the types of players that Nebraska needs. That's where I think a Jalen Jackson from Fort Wayne would have been helpful, right? Not a great shooter, but he could get downhill. Averaged a few assists per game this year. I think a bigger bodyguard like that would have been nice for Nebraska. It's why the Jamarcus Lawrence interest intrigues me, because that's a guy that has a good first step, that has a bit of an explosive dribble, that can create an advantage for someone else. Sure, sometimes that turns into you getting all the way to the rim and scoring. Sometimes it turns into you create a shot late in the shot clock. But what Nebraska needs to make better use of the system that Fred Hoiberg wants to run is simpler opportunities for the other guys who don't have that creation skill. We've seen Connor Seaton get run off the three-point line. He was good against Creighton in the mid-range, not so good at other times. Connor Seaton right now needs simplicity. Berke Boiktangel needs simplicity. Sam Hoiberg needs catch and shoot simplicity. That's what those guys need, someone to do more of the heavy lifting for them, which is where a guy like Price Sanford intrigues me as a secondary kind of ball handler. It's where Markel Sutton, another guy that Nebraska has reached out to up in Omaha, the scoring intrigues me, but I think Nebraska should prioritize Sanford over Sutton, because I don't see how Sutton fits the roster. I know that's kind of a cop-out, but Nebraska hasn't utilized a guy like Sutton, who's a score-first, post-oriented big man. Nebraska wants passing big men, versatile big men. Sutton doesn't really shoot it. He's talented, absolutely. Would I be mad if Nebraska got him? No, I think Fred Hoiberg could find a way to make him work. But I go back to what Jay said. You need a guy that can create off the bounce, create an advantage for you, and you need floor spacing. I think, Jamarcus Lawrence and Price Sanford are two pretty decent options at that for Nebraska.
Yeah, and to that point, before we get you out of here, Austin, I think to that point is one of the biggest issues that we talked about a lot this season was the roster construction. And so once again, as you have the transfer portal, when you're a team like Nebraska that doesn't feature a lot of high school recruiting, it gives you a chance to reset your roster construction pretty much yearly for the most part. And so it's don't piggyback on a poorly constructed roster one year with another issue like that for the second consecutive year, because that's when you can really become into 5 steps back from where you were maybe just 2 years ago when you made the NCAA tournament, guys. All right, Austin, final thoughts on tonight's game. Nebraska, we talked about it, 9.5-point favorites. What's the outcome?
Give me the Huskers to win. I mean, 9.5-point favorite. Who am I to question Vegas, right? If Vegas knows, I guess I'll take the Huskers. But really, for my final word, I just want to give a big shout out to Jay Foreman. Jay, thank you for volunteering your time. It means the world to have you to jump on your show by volunteering your time. So hope you get back to Lincoln soon. But thanks for letting me hop on the show, and I'll be done volunteering my time so you can volunteer some more of yours.
There it is.
It's gonna be.
There it is. Thanks, Austin.
It's about to be over. Boy.
There it is. We'll just part ways now. Evan Bland of the Omaha World Herald is going to join us. He's going to break down some Husker baseball when we come back here. What? You got anything to say?
Nope.
Okay. Are you sure?
I'm 1,000%. Trust me.
There
I'm
it
about
is.
to light this text message up.
We're going to take a break. Evan joins us after the break.
Download our app by searching for 93.7 The Ticket in your app store to stay in touch and listen all day wherever you are. More of On the Block next on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
There's nothing quite like the Mercado by Certified Piedmontese beef. The Mercado offers unique ingredients you can't find anywhere else, open every day from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. The full-service butcher shop and retail store is wonderful for meat lovers with their exclusive certified Piedmontese beef and assorted sausages, plus other quality meats, including pork, chicken, and a wide range of the freshest seafood. Plus, every Friday from 11 to 2, the Mercado serves up the best lunch in town on their Friday Feast menu. Stop in at the Mercado today at 84th and Havelock or visit their website at cpmercado.com to see current deals.
I'm Chief Dave Engler. When a fire truck hits a pothole with 12 tons of fast-moving equipment and crew, it's a problem. On your ballot in April is a measure to continue Lincoln's quarter-cent sales tax for street improvements. A vote against eliminates the street funding. A vote for will not raise your taxes and keeps the funding in place. And better roads means faster response times. Learn more at LincolnOnTheMove.com.
We use our Lincoln streets every day, and so do first responders. But visitors and out-of-town commuters also do. A quarter-cent sales tax for streets passed by voters in 2019 makes those commuters pay about $6 million a year to improve streets. On your ballot in April is a measure to continue it. A vote against means no more funds from commuters. A vote for will not raise your taxes, and commuters still pay. Learn more at LincolnOnTheMove.com. Paid for by the City of Lincoln.
Gaina Trucking is hiring CDL Class A and B drivers. Their strong team culture makes it not a job, but a career. Gaina Trucking offers health, vision, and dental insurance, 401k with company match, an employee assistance program, and other bonus programs. Build a better career today with great team culture at Gaina Trucking. Learn more and apply today at GainaTrucking.com.
Love is in the air, and so are big savings. It's the Big I Do event at Sartor Heyman Jewelers, South Point Pavilions, April 4th through the 6th. For 3 days only, enjoy 20% off all engagement rings and wedding bands, plus exclusive bridal collections from our top designers. Whether you're saying yes or I do, shop now for the year's best prices and selection. April 4th through 6th, Sartor Heyman Jewelers, South Point Pavilions.
Hey Husker Nation, this is Todd Euler, two-time national champion, here to talk to you about Window World Lincoln. At Window World, we specialize in replacement windows, doors, siding, and roofing. Whether you're looking to enhance the beauty of your home or increase its energy efficiency, we've got you covered. And here's the best part. We offer the best for less. Our team is dedicated to providing top quality products and exceptional service at affordable prices. We want to earn your business and make your home improvement dreams a reality. So why wait? Contact Window World Lincoln today at 464-7313 or visit our website at WindowWorldLincoln.com. Window World Lincoln, where quality meets affordability.
Spring is here. It's time to get back outside and into proper shoes this year. Brown's Shoe Fit is the place to buy this spring with their sale on athletic shoes. Get $15 off any regular priced athletic shoes with respected brands like Hoka, Brooks, New Balance, and On Running. And don't forget, Brown's carries a large arrangement of sizes and widths to fit your feet properly. Start your spring off right at Brown's Shoe Fit, just south of 66th and Q in Lincoln.
Hey, what are you talking about over there?
Huh?
I said, what are you talking about?
You know, Bill, I think it's time for both of us to get our hearing checked. We should head over to Christensen Hearing Analytics.
Oh, yeah, I've heard about them. They offer a free hearing consultation and screening, affordable hearing aid prices, and a knowledgeable staff with over 30 years of experience.
Visit Christensen Hearing Analytics today in Williamsburg Village or give them a call at 402-489-3450. Christensen Hearing Analytics. A better life starts with better hearing.
Hi, Sean Callahan here for Koppel Chevrolet GMC, and March Madness is here, and Koppel is ready to rock and roll. We just closed the books on a tremendous February, and we're locked and loaded for a big March. True 0% APR is happening right now at Koppel on select new models. Plus, Koppel has over $10,500 off list on other select new models. Our pre-owned truck lot is full of late model low gyms as well. So make that short drive down 144th Street or check us out online at koppelcars.com. All deals with a roof credit, 0% is standalone.
Hi, I'm Jake from Lexington.
I'm Ellen from Ogallala.
My name's Ray from Sydney.
Hello, I'm Jenny from McCook.
Ryan from Lincoln here.
And I'm Steve from Omaha.
And we've all got one thing in common.
We all love trucks.
Which means we all want to win one of the 8th grade 2025 Ford F-150 XLT trucks in Trucks and Bucks from the Nebraska Lottery.
So I guess that means we have two things in common.
Well, I love playing Trucks and Bucks.
3 things in common.
And we're all from Nebraska.
Sounds like 4.
And I think the gray color of the trucks this year is beautiful.
5 things. Guys, I just want to go to a Nebraska Lottery retailer, buy some tickets, and start playing today.
There's 6.
I like turnips.
I guess we stop at 6.
Trucks and Bucks, your Nebraska Lottery's most popular scratch ticket, is back. Top prize odds are winning $336,000. Ford F-150 is a registered trademark owned and licensed by Ford Motor Company.
When your home fills up with family, Allo Fiber makes sure that space is a happy place for everyone. Allo Fiber experts install it all, and full service means step-by-step support, guiding you through everything so you can stay connected to what matters, and the family can always feel at home. Put the game on, and don't worry about your Wi-Fi calling a timeout. Better TV and internet service is one connection away. Call Allo at 866-481-2556 or visit allofiber.com.
Garage doors can break down or quit working at the worst times. At Doors Plus, they understand that a broken garage door sometimes means repair and not replace. Sometimes, all you need to make your door like new again is a few bolts, a realignment, or even a new balance. Trust the pros at Doors Plus to handle your garage door repair the right way so you can get on with your busy schedule. Visit them online at DoorsPlusLLC.com or give them a call today at 402-590-5800. Doors Plus. Garage doors and more.
Your home is your empire. Protect it with Empire Fence. Get a free instant quote with the online estimating tool at empire-fence.com. See an upfront estimate with no hidden fees. An Empire Fence can provide privacy and improve the appearance of your home. Keep kids and pets in or out of your yard. Increase security and add value to your property. Visit empire-fence.com now to view the stylish and maintenance-free possibilities for your home and get a free instant online quote. Let Empire Fence protect your empire.
Now back to On the Block with Eric Strickland, Jay Foreman, and Austin Orman.
Welcome back into On the Block. Nick Sainert, Jay Foreman alongside. This segment brought to you by Heartland of Nebraska Windows. Heartland of Nebraska Windows is based out of Hallam, Nebraska, and they offer a free estimate, full window replacements, all vinyl, triple pane windows, and a lifetime warranty on everything while keeping their prices affordable. Heartland of Nebraska Windows, locally and family owned with their team of installers. Give them a call today, 402-430-3852, or visit them online at heartlandofnebraskawindows.com. And with that, let's go ahead and bring in our good friend, Evan Bland of the Omaha World Herald. Evan, good afternoon, my friend. It's good to talk to you. I don't get to talk to you a whole lot anymore on the air. Let's talk a little Husker baseball. Nebraska loses their 12th game against Creighton in their last 14 attempts yesterday. And I guess my question is this: how do they turn it around? Because they come in off of some momentum from a big series win, and then starting pitcher TJ Coates struggles to get out of the first inning.
Right. I mean, that'd be a good way to start to turn it around. If you can get more than a third of an inning out of your starter, if you're not falling behind 3-0 because of a bunch of walks when the wind's howling in, that'd be a place to start. Like it very much followed the script of a lot of these other in-state games Nebraska has played, where they hung with Creighton. It wasn't like they got their doors blown off or anything like that, and it was 3 feet away from a Cale Frost go-ahead 3-run home run in the 8th inning, and he ends up doubling instead, and they can't cash in and bring in the tying and go-ahead runs and scoring position, and then Creighton added on in the 9th. So I think it was a game between two decent teams in state, and it was another reminder too of just, I think, how much Creighton puts into midweek games in general. Certainly they've won 17 in a row, just midweek games as a program dating back the last couple of years. So they put a lot into these games anyway. And then you add the Nebraska factor, and the crowd wasn't great yesterday because it was moved up into the afternoon, but typically that's another thing that adds a little fuel to the fire on that side. And for Nebraska, it's tough, right? Because you just had this emotional series win against Oregon State, and you played up to the moment, and then you just couldn't sustain it. And again, I think if you can get 3 innings out of your starter, and then you go to guys like Jalen Worley and Drew Christo, like it sets up a whole lot better than if you're trying to cover essentially a full game out of your bullpen. And that's, I think, what did in Nebraska from the start.
Evan, I wanted to ask you about where we are as a baseball program, and being able to obviously manage and deal with expectations, and how those can get reset after or during the season. And the main point is, obviously, you come in the season with a lot of fanfare and obviously being ranked in the schedule, and then you finally maybe in reality prove yourself with it. Obviously, you win a series against Oregon State. And then you have to deal with that, which is the hardest thing to deal with, I think, in this day and age as an athlete, with his success. And then you let yourself down against a team that like to stick it to you. Is that just where Nebraska's got to really kind of maybe shift from embracing and dealing with the expectations, or resetting the standard of what they should do day in and day out, so therefore they'll be able to push through some of these games?
Yeah, I mean, the day-to-day thing, it does feel like that's been a challenge for Nebraska this year, but for a number of years. I mean, you really, even prior to Will Bolt taking over as head coach, like there were just certain times when you knew that it meant a lot to Nebraska and they'd play up to it. And there were certain times when it was just kind of hard to get going. Maybe the bats were a little flat, or the pitching didn't have quite the same amount of intensity. And, I think sometimes that's a struggle unique to baseball a little bit, where in football you get one crack a week, and just to be out there is sort of a joy and exciting. And it can be different in baseball. You're on a Friday night, and then you're playing on a cold Saturday afternoon, and you're finishing out middle of the day Sunday, and then you got to come back on Tuesday, and the game times change. Like it takes, I think, a different level of just kind of mental strength to be consistent all the time. And for what it's worth, like you look around college baseball, teams are dropping midweek games that are brand name top 10 teams all the time. So these things do happen. It's just happened to Nebraska, I think, more than it feels like it should. And certainly that's accentuated when you mention, like you said, the top 25 preseason, the way that they had ended last year with the Big Ten tournament championship and going to the NCAA tournament. So many of those players were back, and it just hasn't lived up to it to this point. It's not to say that they can't figure some things out and turn it around, but it does feel like it's just been sort of an ebb and a flow with this team, where you get excited, like the win over Vanderbilt or the comeback against USC, and then you kind of fall flat, and then you beat Oregon State, and you recede a little bit. So that's the goal here in the second half, and it starts with Omaha tonight, and then back into the Big Ten. So we'll see what Nebraska's made of here in the second half.
Evan Bland of the Omaha World Herald joining us, and I guess I'll continue on that angle of it. Is it a player issue? Is it an identification of talent? I mean, what if you had all the answers, Evan? What is the issue? Because I was having the conversation with Austin earlier of like Nebraska has to try to figure out ways to rise to that expectation that Will Bolt talks about. And since day one on the job here, Will Bolt's talked about hosting a regional. Now that is obviously out the window for this season. However, you still want to try to build or at least get back to equal of last season. And yesterday was the perfect example where Jalen Worthley comes in and Jalen is always competitive. And you know that there's guys in that bullpen that are just always competitive. Is taking that next step, just having some unusual suspects step up and just eat innings and shove?
Yeah, I mean, typically that's what you'd love to see in the midweek is like a younger guy who you think can be a rotation player down the road, own that Tuesday or that Wednesday job. And I think maybe Carson Yassa, we're seeing that with him. We'll see him pitch tonight. Like, I think he'll be in the rotation maybe as soon as next year. Heck, he could be in the rotation before the end of the season if things play out a certain way. So I think you start with that. But, the midweek thing is a little bit like it accentuates different parts of your team. Like, so it's going to accentuate your pitching depth for one. You're not putting your best 3 starters most likely out there. And ideally, you'd be able to limit the number of high leverage arms you use. Now, Nebraska went all in like yesterday to try to win. They used their closer and they used 2 of their best arms in Christo and Worthley, and they still weren't able to get it done. But then the other part you have to have is sometimes you just need bats to come through and win a slugfest. Like that's what Nebraska did on Sunday. Like the pitching wasn't great Sunday. They got 3 innings out of their starter and they gave up the lead a couple times. And like what made it notable was the bats came to the rescue and they were the heroes and had the big inning. And that's why Nebraska won. And they just, that's not been their style of offense under Will Bolt or really even under Darren Erstad previously. It's been more of a manufacturing runs, playing for a run or 2 an inning. You don't usually see the crooked numbers as much. And sometimes you just need that on a Tuesday when, that your arms that are younger on the other side are going to give up 6 or 7. And this was kind of one of those games too, where like you knew Creighton was going to manufacture some offense and Nebraska had some chances and didn't come through. So I think those are the things that they've tended to struggle with over the years. And those are the things that really become more obvious on a weekday.
It's fascinating, Evan, because I was looking at this and one statistic doesn't tell the whole story, but I was looking at this during Nebraska's struggles that today I just looked, they're 219th in the country in team batting average. I mean, they are second worst in the Big Ten Conference. Washington is the lone team that's lower than them. And obviously Washington was able to steal a series on the road here in Lincoln earlier in the season. I look at not only that statistic, but I look at just the way it feels as well. And what was it going into Saturday? That was the first time this season that they had the same lineup for consecutive days. It's just bizarre. And it feels like even Will Bolt, Lance Harvell, Mike Sirianni, it feels like all those guys are still just trying to find out what works and who should be hitting where.
Yeah, totally. And the lineup combination has changed. The defensive combinations have changed. You've seen Devin Nunez go from a freshman DH to playing the infield. And then a couple weeks ago, he's playing the outfield for the first time. They've moved Caden Brumbaugh around. Case Sanderson and Ty Stone have been in and out at first base, and multiple catchers that you've seen back there with Helixo and Jeske. And so, yeah, I mean, they're trying to find what works. Like Max Butenbach was their number 2 two-hole hitter to start the season, and now he's more of a pinch hitter type. That's how much things have kind of changed, and some of it comes down to, I think, figuring out what your offense is all about. Like they're striking out at a rate that would say this is a power lineup that's going to hit 100 home runs and you'll deal with the whiffs, but that's not been the instance. I mean, they've shown a little bit of flash of power last weekend. That was kind of their biggest surge that they've had to this point, but that's not really what this team is. I think it was constructed to be sort of what we saw last year, where you're going to draw some walks, you're going to work counts, you're going to take those extra bags through steals or wild pitches or hitting runs, whatever it might be. And then you need a couple guys to drive them in. And they had that in Josh Karen and Gabe Swanson. And I think that's been still one of the things that's hurt them this year is they haven't had that big bat that you can just rely on in key spots the way that they did at that point. Now, the frustrating thing is some of those guys are still on the roster. I mean, Gabe Swanson's been hot and cold again, and Cale Frost comes in with a track record, and he's had his moments, but maybe not as consistently as Nebraska would hope. So I think you're still kind of just trying to figure out who you can trust. Ideally, you've got like 6 guys that are going to be everyday guys, and then maybe you rotate 3 based on matchups and streakiness or whatever. But it does feel like even at the midway point of the year here, well into Big Ten play, Nebraska doesn't necessarily know what that lineup's going to look like or what they're going to get out of their guys on a day-to-day basis. And I think that's the results that we've seen have certainly reflected that.
Evan, last one before we let you go. Evan Bland of the Omaha World Herald with us. I was on my show earlier this morning, and we had a text asking, is this team just a late bloomer? And I responded to that question by a listener by saying Nebraska / Big Ten teams don't have the luxury of being a late bloomer in a season, and because everybody knows about the whole RPI situation, right? And I sat there and I go, man, you look back at what Nebraska did have this non-conference season, now halfway through the year, and go, you had an opportunity to you stole one against Vanderbilt and you thought, okay, Nebraska's going to be just fine. But a couple of losses against Kansas State and now the Creighton one. And if they're not able to right the ship with a game like tonight against Omaha, this could be spiraling to where we're having a completely different conversation and feeling about the outlook than what we were just a year ago.
Yeah, I mean, a year ago at this time, Nebraska was a top 15, 20 RPI team. I think now they're still around the 70s or 80s at the moment. But it's the Big Ten, you're right, doesn't have, if you're in the Big Ten, historically, you have not had the luxury of slow starts because you haven't been able to make it up on the back end. Now, I will say, I think it's a little bit of a different situation now that the Pac-12's gone and the four of those schools are in the Big Ten. You have seen the league profile rise. They had long been like the 6th or 7th best RPI league in college baseball. Now they're up to about 4. And so even like Omaha tonight, like their RPIs, I think in around 160. The last few years, it's been outside of 200. So, and they're the worst RPI team left on Nebraska's schedule. So I will say that this year you do have more of an opportunity to make up some of that RPI ground than you have in the past. But there's no doubt still like it's been a missed opportunity in terms of Nebraska scheduling hard with a veteran roster that it felt like it knew what it was going to get. And so, I mean, all that's left is to win your weekends, really. I mean, and even the midweeks, like you mentioned Kansas State, Creighton, like you win those games, they're going to boost your RPI. You lose those games, they really don't hurt you that much in the scheme of things. So I think that's a smart way to schedule as opposed to some of the Summit League stuff that they've had in the past. And then it's going to come down to, can you figure out your rotation? Can you start winning some Big Ten weekends? And if you can, you should be playing some meaningful baseball into May.
You mentioned something about scheduling difficult. Is that a thing that if Nebraska can't string some successful seasons in a row, that Nebraska fans have to worry about going away? Like is the Frisco College Baseball Classic or whatever it is, or the Shriners College Showdown ever going to not be interested in Nebraska? Or is that something that Nebraska, just because they have fans that travel well in the second week of February when the season starts, and most of the time they are competitive, that's just something that's always going to be available to them?
Yeah, I mean, I think it would have to go really poorly for an extended stretch for that to go away. They know Nebraska fans travel. It's a brand. It's regularly one of the better teams, or has been one of the better teams in the Big Ten. And I just think you see the other way. Like you look at a team like Purdue, for example, it has one of the weaker strength of schedules in the country, and they pile up wins in the non-con, and it doesn't really generate a lot of excitement. And then you play a good team and you lose, and it's really hard to dig out of that. So I think, in my opinion, Nebraska is scheduling the right way. Now, maybe this year was a little more ambitious, and the team that they thought they had has regressed a little bit. That's possible, but I think especially as it pertains to the midweek, like you might as well schedule some of those teams that are your peers, where again, if you win, it's going to help, and you lose, and so be it. Like it doesn't hurt your situation all that much. But if you're in the business of wanting to host a regional and being a team that that reflects the fact that you draw attendance-wise at a top 15 clip nationally, then yeah, you need to be playing other power conference teams, some warmer weather teams, and there's going to be struggles with that. But I think history says, again, even if you can hold your own early in the season and then do well in the league, like you're going to like where you end up at the end. I think that's kind of Nebraska's blueprint.
All right, Evan, we'll let you go, my friend. Thanks you for the time as always. Good stuff. And they'll talk to you next week, I'm sure.
Yeah, great time. See you guys.
There he is, Evan Bland, Omaha World Herald. Appreciate the time there. Some real fascinating stuff with Husker baseball. They got to get it out. They got to get it figured out. They have a chance. I mean, this is a big week. Talked about it with Evan. Big week, big opportunity. They will travel to Tal Anderson Field later on tonight. Play at 6 p.m. is the first pitch there, so just a little over an hour away from first pitch between the Huskers and the Mavericks there. Then it's a weekend series against the Rutgers Scarlet Knights here in Lincoln. And so I saw single game tickets obviously still on sale. It's going to be a chilly week, runs at a premium. But like Evan kind of mentioned there, maybe it's one of those where the lineup just kind of has to go win you a game by scoring 6 or 7 runs in unfavorable conditions, which Nebraska hasn't been able to do so for a consistent amount of time so far this season. Let's step aside. We round out the 4 o'clock hour. Coming up next here on The Block, Nick Sainer, Jay Foreman alongside. We'll be right back on 93.7 The Ticket.
Follow Austin Strick and On the Block on Twitter at Austin Orban, eStrick20, and On the Block 93.7. More of On the Block coming up.
Are you ready for a new opportunity? Check out Sandhills Global. Join a dynamic team where your skills are valued and your career can soar. We offer full-time positions with a 4.5-day work week, competitive pay, excellent benefits, and a positive work environment. From IT and marketing to sales and finance, we're looking for talented individuals just like you. Apply today at sandhills.jobs and take the first step towards an exciting future. That's sandhills.jobs. Don't wait, apply now.
This is Monster Jam. Big air, backflips, and all-out racing. Monster Jam, as big as it gets. The fun begins at the pit party, where you can meet the drivers, get autographs, take pictures, and see the trucks up close. Get your pit party pass at monsterjam.com today. Must have valid event ticket to enter pit party. Restrictions may apply. Rules and activities are subject to change. Visit website for event details. Coming to Pinnacle Bank Arena April 18th through 19th.
If you're in Seward or Milford, listen up. Select Plumbing is now servicing your area with no trip charges from Lincoln. Select Plumbing works on a variety of issues for your home and business, including general plumbing, water heaters, faucet fixture repair, underground sewer and water repairs, backflow testing, and more. Keep your property free from leaks and other issues. Call today for a free estimate at 402-560-6197. It's not just Lincoln, Waverly, and the surrounding area anymore. It's also Seward and Milford with no trip charges. Contact Select Plumbing to inquire at 402-560-6197. Wall-to-Wall Wine and Spirits is your place in North Lincoln to go for all your needs in wine, spirits, and beer. They also have a large variety of cigars in their walk-in humidor, and they have a top-notch walk-in temperature-controlled high-end wine room. Plus, you can enjoy free samples from their tasting bar. There's only one place to go for all your needs for spirits and cigars. That's Wall-to-Wall Wine and Spirits on North 27th Street in Lincoln. Tailored Landscapes is actively preparing for spring. Things like new tree orders, getting equipment ready, and training staff to serve you the best they can. If you haven't already planned, now is the perfect time to figure out a maintenance plan for your yard. Tailored Landscapes is on the brink of spring cleanups for all their existing customers, and they have limited spots available. They trim trees and shrubs when needed and only mulch proper amounts. Give Tailored Landscapes a call at 402-432-2572 to set up a meeting with one of their designers and stop by the Tailored Life store in Bennett.
Lincoln's go-to for fun isn't new. It's a place that's been a staple of the city for years and is only getting better. Matson's Bowling and Billiards always has open bowling available with no long lines, unlike other centers. They have live music almost every weekend and great food at EJ's Bar and Lounge, with seating for 150 people. They have popular meals like the EJ Burger, pizza for the whole family, and famous EJ's Wings. Contact Sarah to book a party for friends, coworkers, or family at Matson's Bowling and Billiards, just south of 48th and Holdridge.
Experience the Landmark difference with the next level of dealer support. Landmark, your local John Deere dealer, continually works to have parts on hand the first time you walk in the door. Our internal route system means we can get the parts to you typically same or next day to keep you up and running. At Landmark, we understand time is money. Get more uptime with our after-hours parts and service support on the phone or in the field. Stop by your local Landmark today to experience the Landmark difference.
Spring is here. It's time to get back outside and into proper shoes this year. Brown's Shoe Fit is the place to buy this spring with their sale on athletic shoes. Get $15 off any regular priced athletic shoes with respected brands like Hoka, Brooks, New Balance, and On Running. And don't forget, Brown's carries a large arrangement of sizes and widths to fit your feet properly. Start your spring off right at Brown's Shoe Fit, just south of 66th and Q in Lincoln.
Hi, I'm Jake from Lexington.
I'm Ellen from Ogallala.
My name's Ray from Sydney.
Hello, I'm Jenny from McCook.
Ryan from Lincoln here.
And I'm Steve from Omaha.
And we've all got one thing in common.
We all love trucks.
Which means we all want to win one of the 8th grade 2025 Ford F-150 XLT trucks in Trucks and Bucks from the Nebraska Lottery.
So I guess that means we have two things in common.
Well, I love playing Trucks and Bucks.
3 things in common.
And we're all from Nebraska.
Sounds like 4.
And I think the gray color of the trucks this year is beautiful.
5 things. Guys, I just want to go to a Nebraska Lottery retailer, buy some tickets, and start playing today.
There's 6.
I like turnips.
I guess we stop at 6.
Trucks and Bucks, your Nebraska Lottery's most popular scratch ticket, is back. Top prize odds are 1 in 336,000. Ford F-150 is a registered trademark owned and licensed by Ford Motor Company.
A smoke-free environment is the only way to fully protect from the dangers of secondhand smoke. That's why smoke-free policies are so important to me. Whether it's in my car, apartment building, or when I'm dining outdoors, there's no place for secondhand smoke or e-cigarette aerosol. Breathe easier knowing the facts. Visit smokefree.ne.gov. Paid for by Tobacco Free Nebraska. Aired with the Nebraska Broadcasters Association and this station.
This is Lincoln's home for sports talk on the FM dial. Also online at theticketfm.com.
On the internet.
KNTK FM Firth, 93.7 The Ticket. Now back to On the Block with Eric Strickland, Jay Foreman, and Austin Orman.
Welcome back in. Final segment of the show until we turn it over to the 5 o'clock hour. Nick Sainert alongside Jay Foreman, brought to you by the Mercado Certified Piedmontese. This segment, by the way, brought to you by our friends at League One Volleyball. Segment sponsored by League One Volleyball. Don't miss your chance to see Olympians, national team players, and national champions with Love Omaha. Get your single match tickets today for the upcoming final match of the year at LOVBOMA.com. That's LOVBOMA.com. See players like Laura Dykema, who was in the studio, Lexi Rodriguez, who was in a couple of months ago as well. It's their final match of the regular season here at home in Omaha. So make sure you get those tickets today. LOVBOMA.com. All right, Jay, I haven't been able to have this conversation with you specifically. I think it's really fascinating that there are players and with the help of their agents, because agents are just frankly doing their job in this case, they are starting to ask for even larger amounts of money. And we see this in basketball specifically right now with revenue sharing on the horizon, that the asking price for some of the top tier transfer portal players are higher than it's ever been before. And like, we're talking millions higher than it's ever been before, because once revenue sharing comes out, it's going to be a little bit more even of a playing field than it is right now.
Yeah, that's the hope. I don't think it is.
Yeah,
I think
true.
I think it's supposed to bring competitive balance. I don't think it's going to do it. I think it's just they're going to find ways around it. I think it's never going to be what they tell us or say it's going to be, but This is equivalent of before the NFL put in a rookie salary cap. We had, and I think one of our Nebraska's own, and Ndamukong Suh was one of the last ones. Because, remember when they get picked, then you'd all of a sudden be the highest paid tight end or the highest paid whatever. And then, everybody, I mean, there was guys coming in the league.
Which the signing bonuses now are still absurd.
Yeah,
but the actual contracts are not as crazy.
Yeah, and they were coming in making more than Hall of Famers.
Yeah.
Those guys coming in making more than Antonio Gates and Tony Gonzalez at the time. So that's what you're seeing. Heck, on the women's side, at Notre Dame, they were probably going to be the odds-on favorite for national championship next year in the women's side. Their roster is completely blown up for the simple fact the young lady decided not to turn pro because she can get more NIL money. And then you had the young lady that was at Arizona transferred to Iowa State because Iowa State got a whole bunch
Jada
of
Williams.
Yeah, so I think you're going to see that a little bit more. And you know what I would say? This is if you're an agent and you ask for a stupid amount of money, knowing that your price was X, and you ask for 5X and you get 3X, you did your job.
Exactly.
But there's some interesting quotes that maybe we'll get into in the 5 o'clock hour from Kirby Smart. What it would be like if an agent, and this is the problem with some of these, and you need representation. You see all these young kids, I don't know what they are, in DECA or something.
It's in the FFA.
FFA is here. You just accumulate all these kids, and then you have a Zoom. And just, what do you do? Just put up your pictures like it's a mugshot? Hey, I got Nick, I got Jay. Which one do you want? There's agents literally having Zooms with decision makers saying, these are all our guys. Some of them even might be your guys. So you better make sure that whoever your, secretary is, better do it per school. But there's guys presently in spring, presently probably slated to either compete for playing time or start, or potentially in the portal. It's crazy.
It was bizarre. I even saw on a tweet earlier today where a guy entered the portal. There was an agent that replied to him and was like, "Hey, if you need representation, talk to me." Like they're just, I mean, it's open. And it's because a lot of times the guy that jumped in the portal had like 546 followers. He was coming from a mid-major school. He wasn't very popular, but he was one of the better portal entries now to this date. And he was going to have, he's going to have opportunities certainly, but it's one of those things of like, they are all over the place, but it's also important to have representation.
It is, good, honest representation.
Because there's 99% of them not going to know what to do.
And there's 99% of the guys out there representing guys that don't care. Now, you got to make sure, and that's where you need to really, I'm big on this, Nick. I think I'll say this, and it's not just because, he's the coach at Nebraska. I think the way that, like Matt Rule sometimes handles it is like, hey, look, I understand if somebody's going to give you more money, you can't, you got to go get it. I mean, that's how he became a really good coach. And he's always kind of, done what's right for the players, or kind of always didn't just cut you off. I guess that's what I'm saying. I think if you really want to set yourself aside in this market of acquiring players, or, because they're just assets. I mean, let's be honest, is you try to give them everything that you need to be successful as a person.
Yeah.
All the while still coaching them hard as hell. You know what I'm saying? Because what that will do, that'll eliminate the BS agents that will call Nick Sainer and try to pull one over on you, because you already have the representation that you do right by the players. Now, the players got to hold up their end. I think you can do that. But right now, I'm telling you, man, you got a bunch of snake oil guys out there, and there's only about 5% of them that are really doing what's right by the players.
There's a lot more we can certainly get into, and we're going to get into that in the 5 o'clock hour, because I think it varies by sports. Like the principles of it doesn't, but in terms of how it affects the sport individually, I think it does, because I think it affects basketball differently than it does football, and a lot of that has to do with roster numbers. So we'll dive into that as well. We're going to have a special guest at 5:30 from the high school sports scene, which obviously Jay and I are involved in with calling games here. So we're excited to talk to the special guest at 5:30, both of us. And so then we'll round out the show in the 5 o'clock hour. So it's going quick. Jay, we don't get to do this very often, so looking forward to the 5 o'clock hour. Let's do that when we come back here on 93.7 The Ticket.
There's nothing quite like the Mercado by Certified Piedmontese Beef. The Mercado offers unique ingredients you can't find anywhere else, open every day from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. The full-service butcher shop and retail store is wonderful for meat lovers with their exclusive Certified Piedmontese Beef and assorted sausages, plus other quality meats, including pork, chicken, and a wide range of the freshest seafood. Plus, every Friday from 11 to 2, the Mercado serves up the best lunch in town on their